Welcome to the 24th in a series of shows focused on Brookline as an age-friendly community. In 2012, the World Health Organization designated Brookline as its first age-friendly community in New England. This was a result of work by the Brookline Select Board, Brookline residents, town departments, and a volunteer organization, Brookline Can, and all of their work. All 24 of these episodes are available on the Brookline Can website, and you can reach that, anybody can reach that who wants to. Today our guest is Sassy Outwater-Wright. Sassy is the executive director of the Massachusetts Association for the Blind and Visually Impaired. Sassy's background involved music and acoustics at Arizona State University, and for 15 years prior to her present position, she worked in science, technology, and music. Her background was in access technology and digital accessibility, specializing in technology user experience for people with multiple disabilities. Sassy lives in Salem, Massachusetts. Welcome, Sassy.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it's great to have you here. Can you, first of all, I said a mouthful. MAVV, from now on I'm going to say MAVV,
yeah.
But it's Massachusetts Association for the Blind and Visually Impaired.
Yep.
Can you tell us something about the organization and its history?
Yes, MAVV was founded in 1903 by Helen Keller and a group of her peers and cohorts at the time in response to wanting to have some self-determination and autonomy in being a disabled person at that time. The majority of people who did not have family to support them at that time were technically wards of the state, and they were sent off to institutions, and this they were fed up with that. They wanted to have control over their own lives. They believed that blind people could and should have access to employment opportunities, have access to independent living and housing, and have meaningful, fulfilling lives that they directed and that they determined for themselves. And so they pushed, and that was why MAVV was originally created, and that's still our mission today, to help people figure out how they want to deal with blindness and then give them the tools and techniques to support them doing so.
Great. And you're the executive director.
I am.
And you are located in Brookline, is that correct?
We are. We are in the Cottage Farm neighborhood on Ivy Street here in Brookline. We also have an office in Worcester, so I'm all over the place.
You travel.
But, and we have services throughout the state. We're a statewide organization, but we have a huge footprint here in Brookline, and we love what we do with the town of Brookline, and we are deeply invested in this community, and it is our home.
Yes, I didn't mention it's a nonprofit. I guess they've assumed that, but
we are
just
a nonprofit.
To make the point.
Yep.
You're a nonprofit. And how do you work? Do you work in Brookline with some of the groups? Again, we're age friendly, so I care also about older adults, but everybody.
Yep.
But do you work with any of the older adult groups?
We do. So we work very closely with the Brookline Senior Center. We have one of our access technology programs there for teaching older adults who are losing their sight how to use technology to do activities that they may have relied on with their their eyesight to accomplish before. So we teach screen reading technology, how to listen to what your computer is doing, how to magnify the screen so you can see it. We teach everything from iPhone and iPad or Android to computer technologies, to wayfinding things, navigational tools, what we call visual interpreters, or technology that connects you via phone camera to a sighted person who can then assist you with a task if you do not have enough eyesight to see the task for yourself. Yeah,
and I think it's probably obvious to people, but it wasn't to me right away, is that visually impaired and blind involve a range of capabilities.
Yeah.
So that when you say expand the visual, etc., everybody's different there.
Yeah, so you can be totally blind like myself with no light perception, nothing whatsoever, or you can have approaching legal blindness where you still have enough sight to drive, but there may be some restrictions on your license and we serve from point of diagnosis of a condition causing loss of sight all the way through to total blindness. So we do not have the restriction of just serving the legally blind population, which is 2,200 field of vision. We don't have that restriction. We serve from point of diagnosis. So if you walk into your doctor's office tomorrow and they tell you you have macular degeneration or glaucoma or something, and you're concerned that that is going to have an impact on your sight, that's when we start stepping in and being able to provide support and services.
I'm impressed, by the way, by your technology. I've watched you use it.
Thank
I
you.
had to call a taxi or Lyft.
Yeah.
And I've also watched you just use it on the, use your phone, etc.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm very impressed. And I see the technology. I'm very impressed, actually.
It's pretty amazing. You know, I think of 10 years ago, before the iPhone really took us forward by a quantum leap in what we could do. Now I can walk into any bookstore, pick up any print book or print material and start reading within seconds.
Amazing.
Versus, you know, when I was in high school or college, you know, you had to have kind of someone be the intermediary there and be the intermediary between you and what you were, quote unquote, allowed to access in the world. And they had to give you that gateway access. Now I have that in my own hand. And that's a change I could not have imagined in my lifetime. Yeah.
Empowering. I mean, that's, I can imagine it.
Yeah.
So one of the things, I know you work with volunteers. Is that something that you look for? Do you look to
We
get
do.
more?
Yeah, the other programs we have here in Brookline, we have our one-to-one volunteer program. We have close to 400 volunteers throughout the state.
Wow.
And a good portion of them, many of them are here in Brookline area or the Boston area.
And how do you recruit them?
We reach out anywhere and everywhere we can. We have links on our website and our social media if you want to volunteer with us. And we ask that, you know, people fill out an application and then we bring them in. You come in for a volunteer training session. We match you with someone who is blind or has low vision, and you assist them to do daily tasks, whether it's getting out and going grocery shopping, reading the mail, getting out for activities of healthy living, like going for power walks or going to the gym or swimming. It's an incredible program. We have so many partners who have worked together, volunteer in person for 20 plus years. So whether you're in it for a 20-year stretch or you're in it for a few years, you know, we love to have you. And you become more than just a volunteer and a person. You become friends usually and establish, you know, some pretty deep, meaningful connections. I've seen some of that happen with
the volunteer programs out of the senior center. And
it's incredibly really powerful.
So what, I know you do a lot of things, occupational therapy. There's so many different programs. You work with people in their homes.
We do.
But, and what about the technical side, the tech training? How does anybody learn to use those?
So in the Brookline Senior Center, we partner with them for a couple days a week to take over the technology lab in there. And we match people who come in and say they want to learn technology. We match them with blind people who use technology every day. So we have a qualified MAVV staff assistive technology trainer on staff at the center, and then we have a team of volunteers and interns who does a lot of the training. And the nice part there is you're working with a peer, someone who has been through adjustment to blindness themselves. They've been there, done that, and now they're using that technology every day in their own daily lives. So they can be a technical support, they can be an emotional support, they can be someone who just gets it. And there's something comforting and familiar about someone where you can just say, I'm really struggling today. I'm really feeling sad that I lost my sight and I can't go see the Red Sox anymore. And they might, you know, say, I went through that too. Here's a great announcer on the radio that really does a great job. Let me, you know, connect you. Maybe we can go, you know, catch a game together or something. Having that companionship through that experience is really important. So we provide that, plus the actual technology training of how would you then access that broadcast of that Red Sox game.
Right. Do you actually have, your volunteers though, and not all visually impaired, or you can?
Most of them are. A couple are sighted, but the vast majority of our technology volunteers are blind themselves. It's a really important part of our program is that they have that experience. They have that support.
So I'll just make a point here. We have a second, and Brookline Interactive Group that we work with here works with virtual reality. And one of the things they have is a virtual reality program that shows what happens as you lose your sight. And it's also, and it's someone who went through that and developed the program over many years actually. So that might be a useful tool for someone who wasn't sight in any way impaired, to learn and understand at least what was happening around them.
We do some of that during our volunteer training, or our occupational therapy team. All of our staff members have been through training as to
Really?
what people have experienced or will be experiencing as they go through. Different eye conditions have a different experience of losing sight.
Right.
So their field of vision will change in different ways. So all of our staff has been through kind of what is that experience like, so we can better support those we serve.
Now, what happens in their homes as this happens? Do they need help to?
Yeah, a lot of people need help to kind of modify their homes. So we have a team of occupational therapists. We have one of the largest teams in the country of occupational therapists who are trained in both low vision and brain injury, because a lot of times you'll see blindness isn't just in the eyeballs. If your brain can't process what your eyes are telling it, then you have trouble with vision.
Right.
So we support people with brain injury as well, or what we call cortical blindness, where the visual cortex of the brain is not processing input from the eyeballs.
Oh, wow.
So our occupational therapy team goes in home, you get matched with a therapist, they come in and they work with you to find out what your goals and needs are, and then they help you set up your home to be safe and effective with good lighting, good contrast on your appliances. They teach you safe kitchen techniques,
Right.
moving about your home safely, reducing fall risk, all of those things that can, be complicated in terms of your health or activities of daily living as you're going through the process of adjusting to losing your sight. They can come in and make sure that you feel supported as you go through that in home.
That's great.
Yeah.
Are there any the support groups? Do you work with any other groups in the state or in Brooklyn?
Yeah, we have 37 support groups throughout the state of Massachusetts. We have one here in Brookline,
Right.
and that meets at the Brookline Senior Center
Okay.
once a month on Wednesdays. And it's an incredible group. I've been there several times to work with the group and talk with them, and it's very powerful to be in a room full of people who get it. Again, going back to that peer support kind of
Yes.
thing, or that somebody who's been there, done that. We try to put that at a root of a lot of our programming, so that you feel like somebody else or a few other people might have similar experiences. Because a lot of times, if you're a blind person and you walk into a room, you're not going to be able to look around and see if you have any peers in that room. You're not
Right.
going to, A, you can't see them, but B, there's not that many of us.
Right.
And we're not readily identifiable unless you're walking with a cane or a dog. And so to know that you're in a room full of safe people who have gotten some level of experience with this really helps you to feel like you're not doing it alone, and that there are things to help you deal with it. It's not going to be kind of a life-altering or life-pausing thing. It is a traumatic thing to get a diagnosis of an eye disease that will eventually blind you, but it is by far not the hard thing to deal with that I think society can make it out to be, and there's so much stigma attached to it that we try to dispel.
I think my experience, a little bit of experience, everybody's had some experience. And my experience over the years, which are a lot of years, is I can recall back in the, I had a stepmother who went blind over years, and various other people, that they were all alone. Each one back in this is the 70s, 80s, they were alone. And there really was no help.
Right.
And on Brookline, I sense a very big difference, because I know a couple of people who are either impaired or very badly impaired, and all of them say there are more people around them that help than they remember in the past. And I think it's you're changing things.
Yeah.
Is what I'm saying.
We're coming to a point societally where blindness is not this absolute fear-based
Right.
mythology anymore. I think for a long time we lived in a society that feared loss of sight more than we feared death itself, and there were lots of psychological studies that kind of went through and looked at that. America feared blindness. If you think about the word blind, we use the word blind to connotate stupidity, impulsivity, fear, rage.
Yeah, you're right.
All these negative things, and then it would be natural to then transfer that to the person experiencing it, or to ourselves if we're the ones experiencing it. And that's just mythology, and doesn't need to exist anymore. Blindness does not need to be the end of all good things. It is absolutely not.
Yeah, I noticed, I tried this VR thing, and I noticed that as it showed shadows and you could see less, but it also pointed out the various sounds that were around that people didn't notice. And,
Yep.
and it became obvious to me that, you know, a lot of different things. But it was actually an interesting experience. But
I think that's one of the coolest part of having occupational therapists who are trained in both brain rehabilitation and vision loss. Our OT team is whole body. So that means that they can kind of remind you that as you lose your sight, your brain is an incredibly resilient organ.
Right.
It is what they call in neuroscience plastic, which means it will start to invent new ways of dealing with what the world is throwing at it. So it will start to listen more. It will start to hear new things that it may have filtered out before. So as you lose your sight, the OTs are going to kind of gently nudge you to, okay, well, maybe you would normally look to see that the water is boiling before you put the pasta in.
Right.
Listen, this is what boiling water sounds like.
oh, that's great.
Or, you know, listen, this is what it sounds like when meat goes from raw in the pan to cooked, or this is what it smells like, and this is how you touch. These are things that the OT is going to teach you. Your brain already is starting to do. We're just going to nudge you in the right direction to put the pieces together.
Yeah, I remember my stepmother would put a finger in the coffee cup to pour water to tell
Yep.
where the water was, but she burnt the finger very often that way.
Yeah,
But it
so
was it became calloused actually.
so we have, you know, like tools that will hand you to do that, so you don't have
they didn't
to
have-
burn your fingers.
they
Yeah,
did not have
technology has changed so much.
So speaking of tools, we've done recently, as you know, because you were the narrator, we produced Big, very helpfully, Corbin at Big really did quite a job, and worked with the Brookline Commission of Disabilities and with us, AFC TV, with our illustrious producer Michael as one of the actors, and John C. as one of the as a technologist, helping out. You guys all produced a set of videos teaching sighted guiding, right? And what was the purpose of those videos?
Some people call it sighted guide, some people call it human guide. It is the ability to be of assistance to a person who is blind or has low vision that you may meet or that you may know as a friend or a stranger you see out on the street. Sometimes it's faster or more efficient for us to take your arm and follow you to something rather than continue to use our mobility aid, a cane or a guide dog, or if we have low vision, we may not be using a mobility aid. It just depends on the person. So having a guide experience that is safe and fast and comfortable for both parties is really important. So the video goes over things like
Why don't we take a look at the actual video?
Yeah.
And we'll while we do that, if you can just tell us what sighted, continue with what you're doing. So the video is starting now, and it's got Michael bringing Paul Sainer down the steps and various other activities.
So you'll see Michael is a step ahead of Paul. He is leading him, but he is not pushing him. Paul has his hand on Michael's arm. That's safer. That way we can feel what the sighted person is seeing through their body. We can feel if they're going to step up or step down a step before we have to do it.
And I noticed Michael asking before he does anything.
Yep.
Walking over and saying, "Can I help you?" And Alice.
Yep.
We've got Alice in the street.
So you'll notice that he's asking before he doesn't touch Paul. He lets Paul reach out for him. And Paul will usually say, and most blind people will say, "May I take your arm?" before they touch you.
Right.
But it is not safe to just reach out and grab or touch a blind person. I know oftentimes people will grab me thinking that they're being helpful. If I'm reaching out for an escalator or a stair railing or something and my hand is hovering in space like this, let my hand be there. Don't grab it. I don't come up and grab your gaze. Please don't grab mine. This is my gaze. So, just come up and offer assistance. Is there anything I can do to help you?
Yeah, I think even my little watching of a few of these, I learned things that I didn't know before. So it's clearly useful.
Yeah.
It's going to be used a lot of different places. Do you know where? I think the senior center is planning on it. Schools?
Probably. I think I see more kids The other day I was walking through the store, and a person came up to try to pet my guide dog, and the kid was maybe 6 or 7 and goes, "Mom, you can't do that. That's a guide dog. He's working." And I was like, we're training our kids better than we're training our grown-ups.
I think that's true.
So I hope it gets used in schools. I hope that kids learn that blindness isn't something to fear, and that it is easy to offer help, and that we're nice, we don't bite, neither do our dogs.
Right. Yeah, I think it's quite a difference. Do you plan on using these videos at all with your programs?
Yeah, we do a lot of sighted guide trainings throughout the community. For our volunteers, all of our volunteers are trained in guiding. Our mobility instructors, those who teach people how to use white canes, and other mobility aids, use these things and go out into the communities at schools and various communities to teach how to do guiding. So there are a lot of ways that we can all use this. And I think that's the important part, is if you see these videos and they appeal to you, please spread that word.
They are available. They'll also be on the Brookline CAN website, which I mentioned before. They'll be available on, I tend to put them out, and so do a lot of other people, on Twitter and Facebook.
Yeah.
And so almost any place, they're available. I mean, they're on YouTube. They're a big site, So I think it's worth, as far as I can see, it doesn't take that long to at least get started with them. And it's a really good learning piece. Also the canes, I've noticed more canes. Well, maybe I'm imagining, but it appears to me more people are using canes. Is that just for their use, or is it also to indicate that they need?
It's both. The cane is a tool of freedom. The cane, I think a lot of people look at it as something that might stigmatize us, but it is absolutely the open door that we need to be out exploring and living life and going to work or going to activities that we want to engage with. It is how we safely and comfortably get what we want out of life and go out there in the community. So more and more people are feeling comfortable saying, I'm blind and I'm not going to let that, be a deterrent to me. I'm going to travel safely and independently. So they pick up a white cane or a guide dog and get out there and do what they want to do in life. So I'm so proud to see more and more cane use coming. It's safety, it's independence, it's freedom, it's all of the things that we deserve access to and we have access to should we choose to use it.
So a key tool that everybody needs is a phone.
It is.
Or at least to me, so, being in social media, etc. But what is the advantage? How are phones, these phones with texting and all of these things, how do those work?
Well, I'll actually tie the canes and the phones together, strangely enough.
Okay.
Yes, you're right, that canes are an ID, that the Sighted Society sees that somebody is blind, and that's how, in large part, they know to offer help. Right. And there's a transition period between when a person starts to lose their sight and just needs to kind of enlarge the text on a screen to when they are totally blind and need to hear that text spoken aloud by what we call a screen reader technology.
Right.
And the phones that are coming out nowadays from Apple and Android can do both. Whether you need the text enlarged so that you can see what's coming in on your phone, or you need the colors, the contrast changed, or you need the brightness dimmed or strengthened on your phone. All of those things are available in the menu under settings, along with technology if you are losing your hearing, and technology if you are blind to the point where you cannot access print anymore with your eyesight. There are screen reading technologies on every single smartphone that Android and Apple are putting out that you can just turn on, and you don't have to buy a separate piece of software or do something separately.
Oh, that's great. That's a big difference.
It's a massive difference.
Because almost anything, if you have to start trying to, one of the problems we have versus, for instance, China and some of the other, is that we tend to put them in little separate pieces, all of these tools. And if they work together as one,
If you have a variety of accessibility settings on an iPhone, for example, that you can rely on to customize your experience as you're using that piece of technology, you're more likely to pick it up more and more and more and do more things with it. And just like a cane, you're more likely to pick it up more and more and more as you find that your independence is increased by using this tool. So our goal at our tech training centers with our occupational therapists. The goal of MABV is to help you find the tools that work for you and to put them together into a seamless package that you grab every day, every moment, and that becomes part of how you cope with life as a blind person. My kind of operating theory for MABV, or mission for MABV, is that there's no one right way to do blindness adjustment. There's your way, and we're here to support you in finding out what that is and how to do it.
So we have a couple of minutes, and I wanted to ask this. We're doing in June, there's going to be a technology fair, June 4th, in Brookline.
Yep.
And they're going to use all sorts of various technologies for older adults generally. They're focusing on. And that's what it's for. So it's a senior center, it's Hebrew Senior Life, Goddard, all of the. Is that something you might want to participate in?
I think we
you
are.
Don't have to answer now.
Yeah, I think we are participating in it. I believe our technology program already has it on the calendar.
Excellent.
So yeah, we will be there. If it's Brookline and it's technology, chances are pretty good we're part of it.
That's what I was hoping.
Aiming to be, yeah.
So with the older adults, there's, what about students? And you work with two other groups, right, that I'm concerned about, but I focus on older adults.
Yeah.
But do you work with the schools at all directly?
Perkins is in our backyard. We're very lucky to have them, and the Carroll Center is in our backyard. They do most of the K-12 stuff. We do a little bit there. We do work heavily with transition age youth, so those coming from high school into the college experience, we support a lot of them. And we support young adults.
That's pretty key. Actually.
Yeah, and then we support anyone 18 and older who needs help, who's dealing with loss of eyesight, and
So
you don't have to be legally blind.
Do you work with the colleges or with the individuals?
Mostly with individuals. Okay. We do occasionally partner with colleges if they need some support. But mostly we have individuals reach out to us and say, I need some support, and we come in. We really try to stay focused on person care rather than institutional care. So we are community embedded everywhere around the state, and we really try to put our focus on the person.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, we're reaching the end. I have to say goodbye to people, but this has been fascinating.
Thank you so much for having us.
I ask people to keep tracking and to follow it. So thank you, everybody, for joining us. Remember, the show will be rebroadcast several times in the next few weeks. It'll be available on the Brookline CAM website. It'll be available on the Brookline CAM Facebook and Twitter accounts. And I want to remind people that there will be a technology fair in Brookline in June, and to remember to look for that and look for Sassy and others there, including Big. And I want to thank and give a special thank you to Corbin from the Brookline Interactive Group and the work he did with the sighted guiding and the work he's done to help this program go forward. Thank you.